pole at the end. It's right there when you come into the garage, when you open the garage door. You can't miss it. I'll put that in your car and take it to Mike. Okay, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting is, welcome to MDX and welcome to the month of love. I hope everybody gave their loved ones a beautiful present, and if it was shining, it was even better. And the meeting is now called to order, and with that, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like the birthday boy to lead us today.
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Holland, Mr. Martinez, here. Mr. Rodriguez-Pina, here. Ms. Fano, here. Mr. Vasquez, Ms. Weinberg, Secretary Pago, here. Treasurer Fernandez-Guzman, here. Vice Chair Ferre, yes. Chair Gutierrez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. And with that, we're going to go in and approve the agenda. The agenda is set as is. There are no changes unless I'm being notified now. And the meeting is run by Robert's Rule of Order, and we're a body of rules, regulations, and policy, and that's what the meeting is going to
the agenda.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is set. Council?
Yeah, declaration of voting conflicts. Before I query the board about voting conflicts, I just want to advise the board members that approximately an hour ago, I was served with a lawsuit by MCM. MCM filed a lawsuit against MDX for declaratory judgment and injunctive relief. I'd like to remind all the board members that their comments are all public. Now, do any board members have any conflicts to report?
Council, I do want to address that in the committee meeting, in abundance of caution, I stepped out of the meeting thinking that I had a conflict, but I understand that, you know, we've gone through those issues and there is no conflict. If you'd like to put that in the record for me.
Yes. The Chair Gutierrez came to me with a potential conflict. I resolved it, but in the abundance of caution, I contacted the Florida Senate Commission on Ethics and talked to their general counsels, and he concurred with our opinion, with my opinion, excuse me.
Thank you so much. Anything else? We're moving forward with citizens' comments. We open up the floor for citizens' comments. As you know, our policy denotes that there are 3 minutes for anyone that wants to address the board. At this time, if there is any members of the public that would like to speak, please do so now. Step forward, state your name and address, and address our board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric Fresson, address 1500 Southwest 45th Avenue. I'd like to request your indulgence again, kind of like the Operations Committee. I believe some of you were here as to whether or not you would prefer for the comments to be made now or when the actual item that I believe we're all here to speak on comes up. It's at your discretion.
The agenda, which means there's going to be no changes. We're going to follow the policy. You have 3 minutes. You can address us. I know you're happy. You just came from lunch, and so address us for 3 minutes.
3 minutes is all we get?
This is what you got. That's what our policy says. We are not going to waive per person. We're not going to waive our policy.
Okay.
We're not going to waive our policy because, like I said, same thing as the RFPs are run through policies, this body runs through a policy too.
Understood. I will try to micro machine man my way through this thing. Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'm going to try to be obvious.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, are we going to allow no delegation of time? I mean, these are the things that I want to put on the record clearly before any other variation, so everybody's clear what the rules are on both sides. Or all sides.
Rules are that each individual gets 3 minutes. If I'm mistaken, please correct me, counsel. Each individual that wants to speak gets 3 minutes. You cannot indulge yourself by giving someone else your 3 minutes and then adding 6 or getting to 10. 3 is 3, and the clock starts when you say hello.
That is correct. You get 3 minutes per person. You can't cede your 3 minutes to somebody else. with a total time for public comment is 30 minutes.
So, you got 3 minutes.
Okay. I'll try not to say hello. Does that mean my clock doesn't start? I'm kidding. Okay, so thank you very much, Board, for being here. Eric Frezin, as I mentioned, here representing MCM. We have counsel with Jeff Bass and other folks from MCM that are here as well. I just wanted to frame something. I want to begin by stating that in no way is the lawsuit that was filed today intended to be gratuitously pugilistic. It's just that given the standards that you all have set as far as our recourse in order to be able to actually protest what we think is a recommendation for award based on an erroneous interpretation of the RFP documents, we really had no other choice but to do so. The main point, and Mr. Bass is going to touch on some of the more specific points, is that there is an award being recommended to this board right now for a proposer who, at the time of the operations meeting, and I think we have now noticed, and facts will clear that way, there was an express prohibition in a significant portion of the documents of the RFP of when time of work was not allowed to be conducted. Your own staff in their schedule did not conduct work in the 690-day period. None of the other proposers, but for the one proposer who was given the credit for that accelerated timeline, proposed work in this period. We believe that any allowance or interpretation of work being allowed to be completed in what is clearly and unambiguously stated in your RFP document as an express prohibition of any work being conducted in that period should be and must be concluded as to be non-responsive to those documents, and I will allow Mr. Bass to express some of those points now.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. Jeffrey Bass is my name. 46 Southwest 1st Street is my address. There's a fast way to do things, and there's a right way to do things. And in the end, the right way is always faster because you do it once, you do it cautiously, you do it carefully, and then you don't have to do it again. We are going to make, so let me make, a very specific request of you that you defer this item for no less than 60 days. And let me tell you why. You have a protest policy in your procedures, and the best analogy that I can give you is it's impossible to make your connecting flight. There's 30 days for a mediation. There's a limit on when you can file your protest. We filed our protest. Mediation is not going to take place until after your award. In a normal context, you have the benefit of a hearing officer report and recommendation. You have the halting of a solicitation process, but you don't have that in your process. So we filed a lawsuit to make sure, and I would hope that you would welcome, that a judge reads the plain, unambiguous language in section 20.2, which says no construction activities will be permitted between Northwest 29th Avenue and Northwest 37th Avenue. I need to tell you that your RFP document says unambiguously, you do not, for purposes of reading your document, the titles are not part of the document and should not be interpreted. So this comes out. The question is, how do you read the text that says no construction activities to allow construction activities? And this is a case where the time value of the bid was dispositive. So one proposer showed work in that area. It's important to note that Condotte, one of the three shortlisted, did not show work. We did not show work. Odebrecht showed work in clear violation of the document, and we believe, therefore, it's non-responsive. We want a judge to read this and tell us whether we're reading it correctly or your staff is reading it correctly. It is a principle of law that the specific mention of one thing controls over the general, and this document is very specific. We'd ask for a deferral so we could have this adjudicated. Thank you for your attention. Sorry if I went a bit over.
Good afternoon, Pedro Munilla. Most respectfully, there is obviously a great divide in the interpretation of what we consider is Pedro Munilla. I'm with MCM, 7277 Sunset Drive, Miami, Florida. There's a great divide in the interpretation of very simple language. Miami-Dade County, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, Florida Department of Transportation, City of Miami, all say when there is a dispute such as this, one files a protest, everything goes on stop until the protest is resolved. The procedure of MDX is silent on what happens. And what happens is if you award this today, then you've already awarded the project. The remedies that are left to us are very slim. The way that this works, the way that your procedure works, you have 30 days to mediate, and then you have to go to court for a court to decide. Unfortunately, none of the other jurisdictions that we've ever worked with are this. They don't stop the process. We beg that you please permit the protest to play out in the way that everybody else permits it to play out, and have an arbitrator or a judge say, well, does no construction activities between Northwest 37th Avenue and 29th Avenue for 695 days, is that permit construction activities or does it not permit construction activities? The third bidder in this procedure was Condote. Condote asked the question point blank, is construction activities permitted? The answer came back, and different interpretations by different ways, but Condote interpreted the same as we did, and they did not provide any construction activities in their schedule. Condote, MCM, did not provide construction activities in their schedule. Odebrecht provided construction activities in their schedule. We are the lowest price, we are the highest ranked, and we should be entitled to have an arbiter decide. During the time of the evaluation committee, the MDX, one of the MDX evaluators specifically expressed, man, the Odebrecht schedule doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive. There is something wrong with the Odebrecht schedule. It makes certain assumptions that are contrary to the RFP, very clearly. So obviously, one member of MDX read it the same as we did. Obviously, once MDX made its decision of going forward with the recommendation, now they are entrenched in their position. They obviously, everybody can understand that there can be a different opinion, and we would like that different opinion to be resolved in the way of resolving a protest. Let a judge, if it's the way, if we will agree on an arbitrator, we will agree on anybody. We will agree on the board, making its own interpretation. It's
Time,
just,
sir.
Thank you very much.
This is a quick process. Good afternoon. How do y'all do? Juan Munilla. I'm representing MCM Corp. My address, 6030 Southwest 114th Street. And I look at this very simply. You're going to hear the same statements over and over. And specifically, the contract, obviously you already understand that we interpreted this contract, or we read the contract to say, without any ambiguity, that you have a restriction area of 690 days in this contract. You cannot deviate from that. We incorporated into our schedule, into our technical schedule, we incorporated our 690 days. So in the right-of-way, the acquired right-of-way, which is MDX, we do not, the existing 836, we are not working for 690 days. And we are obviously not working in the parcels that need to be taken. Now, if you were to remove that restriction from MCM or the other bidder that was unsuccessful here, we were graded #1 with price and with the technical proposal. But if you remove that restriction from all of us, all of these scheduled dates would have been reduced significantly. You're talking almost 2 years that we cannot work from 29th Avenue to 37th Avenue. I want to just go one more because I couldn't hear. Eric was talking so fast. We have in the RFP of MDX's procurement, the actual RFP that came with the schedule that came with the RFP, they have a similar restriction that is identical in nature to what was written here. and there is no work occurring in the RFP schedule that we received as a sample schedule to model, that for that period of time, there is no work working in, is occurring during that time, whether on acquired property or on parcels to be acquired. So the advantage that somebody gets by taking a gamble, a risk, whatever you want to call it, to go and do something that is outside of the RFP is, what we're doing. If this goes forward, this is rewarding them for taking this gamble. It has been an incredibly unfair advantage that they have taken. We have followed the process, and we have, and I think that it is clear that the days required are the days that we have put and that the other bidders have put. Even had Odebrecht put it and followed the procedure, it would have made sense. They did not follow the procedure. Their schedule shows work in the area. Condote, to the question number 33, was an RFI. The question was asked by the third bidder. The question was hoping to get relief from what was written in the RFP. There was no relief. The third bidder followed what was in the RFP.
Your 3 minutes
somebody
are up,
else.
sir.
I'm sorry? Time's up? Thank you all very much. We hope you deferred just as a responsible board.
Good afternoon, Daniel Munia, MCM, 5400 Southwest 82nd Avenue, Miami, Florida. I'm here for MCM. Real quickly, I want to just restate the relief that we're requesting. As you know, typically in a protest procedure, the process is stayed. The reason it's stayed is so that the board, before it makes its award, could see the entire case play out, could get a judges and arbiters, third parties decision, setting forth the basis and the facts, and allows everybody to get a better understanding of its decision. And essentially all that we're asking for right now is for a deferral at least for 30 days so that we could get an opportunity to present our case before a judge, and so that you guys could have the opportunity of seeing the judge's reasonings and thoughts before you guys make an award. Thank you very much for the time that you guys gave us to say our piece before you. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the board at this time?
Good afternoon. My name is Mauricio Gonzalez. I'm the Director of Construction of Odebrecht USA at 201 Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida. It's a company based in Miami-Dade County, and I'd like to make a couple of points regarding the project. One of them is that we have not heard anything new from MCM today. We concur with the recommendation made by the Technical Evaluation Committee, the GEC, the expert scheduling consultant retained by MDX, by MDX staff, and by the executive director. Second is that MDX is wrong in the assertion that the RFP restricts work on the existing right-of-way. In fact, the RFP allows for work in the existing right-of-way. And third, that Odebrecht complied with all the terms of the RFP and all applicable rules. Ladies and gentlemen, Odebrecht won this competition fair and square. We are excited and committed to delivering this project on schedule to MDX and to our community. And to expand on those points, we have our attorney, Mr. Jim Moy, that's going to present to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you put that on display mode for me? So when I go down here, right? Okay. Yeah.
Madam Chair, while they do that, may I ask a quick question, please?
I'm sorry, to council or to?
To our attorney.
Yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, because this is just a little strange to me that we're doing all of this during public comment, is there any particular reason why we're going through this exercise now and not after the item is called into the record?
Yeah, because the chairperson decided to have it now.
And it was my fault for entering
Also
late?
because, this isn't a tribunal where we're going to discuss and engage back and forth. This is a board. All
Right.
the discussion back and forth happened at committee, and everybody was given like 20 minutes each side to bring up their point. So we're not regurgitate the same thing. If they want to take it to court, they've already sued. We're taking it to court. Here, the public has the right to address the board. They're addressing us as per policy.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Moy. I'm with Moy O'Brien. I'm here representing Odebrecht Construction, Inc. I would first like to advise you that you do have plenty of options in your procurement policy about where protesters want to protest. Section 10-103 provides remedies after the award. Your policies are very clear as to what can happen and the relief that someone can gain. For someone to say otherwise is insincere. We've heard nothing new today. We all know the TEC, the GEC, your expert scheduling group, your executive director, and your operations committee all looked at this in detail. And what did they all conclude? They all concluded that this provision, this right-of-way provision, if you take away the heading, it applies to acquiring new right-of-way. You told the bidders on the new right-of-way to be acquired, you cannot work on it until we get it. The right-of-way we have, you can have it all you want. So what do we really, in this question and answer that they talk about, it's on your part, it's on your sheet. A question was asked by the bidder. Your response was, no activities can take place on a parcel to be acquired until approval is given by MDX. This isn't just a question and answer. Your procurement says the question and answer is part of the contract. Addendum number 18. It specifically states that this is an amendment to the contract, that answer itself. So the RFP is very clear about this, that our client was allowed to work in the existing right-of-way. But what is this really about? It's about innovation. It's about Odebrecht brought innovation to your procurement. Why did they? Because if you look at this exhibit in front of you, you told us, bring innovation. You said the design build firm will be allowed to refine the horizontal and vertical alignments depicted in the technical exhibit. That's what Odebrecht did. They adjusted the alignment so they could do the work in this area without going off the existing right-of-way. And you know what? They're right. No other bidder thought of it. Our client thought of it, and for that reason was in the position to be awarded this project. And for that, I would ask you to please continue down the process. This protest should not have been filed. The lawsuit should not have been filed. No notice to award has been posted. When one is posted, people file protest. They have done everything possible to disrupt this, and in my experience, in my career, I've never seen an owner bend over so backward to give them a fair hearing. At the Operations Committee, yesterday, an hour to staff to see if they had anything else. You've given them their fair day. Let's move the procurement forward in accord with your procurement policy. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Gilberto Neves, President and CEO of Odebrecht, headquartered here in Miami-Dade County. My home address is 8488 Southwest 94th Street. I'll be very brief. It is interesting that only one bidder is filing a protest. The one that asked the question is not even here, because we play by the rules, and we know how to win, and we know how to lose. And I agree with our attorney who said that many opportunities have been given, and we stand by the decisions of the committee, of the review committee, of the staff, and we're ready to start the construction. It is very unfortunate that we are holding MDX hostage at this point. And I encourage you to get the project awarded and the notes proceed given so we can start the work and finish with the early schedule that we offer to you. Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to address this body? Seeing nobody stand up, the portion of the public comment is now closed. We proceed. Is there a approval on the minutes? Is there a motion?
Move them.
All those in favor? Anyone against? Minutes are recorded. Move forward. Executive Director's report, please.
Too many papers on top of the table. Hold on a second. Okay. Madam Chair, board members, for the last 30-day period and moving forward, my report will be brief, but I think it's important to update you on a variety of subjects and issues that we've been dealing with. On February 6th, we met with State Representative Jeanette Nunez, gave her an update on all the activities at the authority, including the Advantage program, the discount program, which he's been very interested in. She made some good suggestions. We've taken them into consideration, and as we've brought to the committee in the last few months, we will make adjustments accordingly moving forward. We also gave her an update on the status of the Miami Intermodal Center and various projects that we're working on right now, including the one we were talking about a few minutes ago. On March 2nd, which is next Monday, we're going to have a follow-up meeting with Mayor Jimenez and Miami-Dade Aviation Department to discuss issues on the MIC. Secretary Pago has been participating. Nothing's really changed on our part of the MIC. There's still some provisions in a resolution for transfer that are putting some onus on MDX that we don't understand. We want clarification, and we're just seeking clarification. This last month, we participated at the Florida Chamber of Commerce 2015 Transportation Summit somewhere north of Tallahassee. Nice place. The subjects, and Mr. Ferre was there, and Bernardo Escobar came along with me. The subjects that were of interest to MDX was technology, technology, technology. Everyone who spoke talked about the advances in innovation and technology, automation, and how it will impact infrastructure in all aspects. In fact, there was a presentation on innovation and automation at ports, seaports, not just the automated vehicle. There was a lot of discussion on what infrastructure investment means. The new state secretary made a presentation and presented his $9.9 billion work program this fiscal year. Everybody was excited, and how there's a tie between that and investments in our infrastructure and economic development. The other interesting part is there was no representation from South Florida other than the three of us that were there, except for the three of us that were there. So that was a little disheartening. This past month, I had the opportunity, I'm not a teacher, but I had the opportunity to teach and discuss leadership at the IBTTA Leadership Academy. We had a staff member who graduated, Francine Steelman. And I'm very pleased that I had that opportunity to talk about transportation. Board members, this is budget season, budget cycle. So as committee meetings are being scheduled now, you're going to be seeing budget proposals by the different departments to have discussion so that we can present and have a budget workshop in April and an adopted budget by the end of May, the May board meeting. We're also in the work program cycle. So you'll see during the operations committee where we'll have discussions on work program, if there's any adjustments, new phases coming into the 5 years, so on and so forth. So I'll give you that heads up. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about is this last month, I've been to many meetings. I've been to, and I know Mr. Ferre, who's our MPO representative, will expand on this, but I've been to the Transportation Summit here in Miami. I've gone to MPO meetings. I've been to meetings with commissioners. And the theme here is that we want to provide a transit solution or solutions here in Miami-Dade County. And the whole notion that MDX needs to be a funding partner in this. What I've done, and I'll state for the record again, what I've said is that since its inception, Miami-Dade Expressway Authority has been a partner, not only with transit, but with any transportation agency when there's a priority project moving forward. And I gave various examples. As far as transit goes, I explained that it's been the policy of this board that we participate in capital improvements, but we don't participate in operations and maintenance. So I've expressed that. I've also pointed to different elected officials that our current legislation allows us to participate in multimodal corridors, because there was a thought that somehow we were excluded from doing that. It's in our current legislation. I bring that to your attention, board members, because our budget, our finances are fairly tight. We have committed to projects that we need to deliver to this community, and diverting any kind of our revenues to uses that are not those are going to require a very long conversation by this board. So with that, I'll conclude my report, and I'll answer any questions that the board has.
Item is open. Any discussion? Any questions? No? All right. Thank you so much. Moving forward, the MPO representative. I'm sorry, I'm skipping. General Counsel.
Yes, I just have one matter. It's regarding the ETC litigation. I'm requesting for a shade meeting pursuant to Florida Statute 286.011, Section 8, subsection A. Attorney for an agency needs to advise the board that they need and they desire advice regarding pending litigation. Pursuant to the statute, I'm therefore announcing that I require advice regarding the case entitled Electronic Transaction Consultants Corporation versus Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. The meeting will take place during the next board meeting, which is scheduled for March 24, 2015. The individuals that can be present are the attorneys for the agency, which is myself and Francine Stillman, outside counsel, which is Joseph Sirota and Michael Arnstein, a court reporter, the executive director, and members of the board. Our discussions at that meeting will be limited to settlement negotiations and strategy relating to litigation expenditures.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
All right, let's move forward. Here we go. The MPO representative.
Thank you,
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me piggyback on what our executive director and his excellent report. But I think we need to step back a little bit. There's a lot of activity going on. It has to do, of course, with a legislative session that begins March the 3rd in Tallahassee for 60 days. And even though transportation is not a major issue because there's $1 billion extra that the governor has, and the fact is that there's no major move to do a transportation bill in Tallahassee, and the $9.9 billion proposed budget seems to cover an awful lot of things. So there doesn't seem to be too much movement on transportation in Tallahassee. However, that meeting up in Tallahassee of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, which is the Florida Transportation Summit, was packed. And the people from Orlando, Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Jacksonville were en masse. And they were all over the place, and they worked everybody. It was just unbelievable, the fellowship and the discussions that were going on about transportation corridors and how monies were going to be used and technology and all these things. From Miami-Dade County, zero representation. I was there as an FTC. My expenses were paid for by the Florida Transportation Commission. I was not there representing MDX. From Miami, Florida, Javier and Bernie. That's it. And I told Tony Arguez, our very able chairman of the Miami Chamber of Commerce, you better wake up, because they're eating our lunch and we're not even in play. So I say that as a background to what the director said. Now move to the Miami-Dade County Transportation Summit as a background again for the MPO meeting. At that summit, they brought this gentleman, very, very impressive man, from Denver, Colorado. And for those of you that were there, it was an impressive presentation, but here's what they're doing. They're building light rail, heavy rail. They've got $1 billion worth of activity going on. So who's paying for it? And so to me, that wasn't very clear. It was just a hodgepodge of different groups paying, some state, some federal, some local, some tolls. So now there's a delegation led by Commissioner Moss, and they're all going out to Denver to follow up on this private sector transportation. And so the thrust is we need transit, and we're looking for money. And MDX, you got a lot of money. You've got a lot of money coming in, and we need to sit down and talk about how you do your fair share.
I'm sorry, where is the money?
Yeah, of course. So the definition of the fair share is coming into play. Now we get to the MPO. At the MPO, Commissioner, Chairman of Transportation Esteban Bobo said, MDX, and I have a bill right here, is the hidden killer. Those are the words he used. And the implication, of course, the hidden killer, the implication, of course, is that they're coming out after our increased toll monies. So we did the hard lifting, and we are terrific as we do these things, and we're excellent in what we do. We're efficient. We're structured well. We're well directed, and we got money. We're the only guys in town with money, and they want some of it. That's coming. So I'm just telling you, the MPO report. The only thing that was important was that there was a free-for-all between the city of Miami and Miami Beach as to who was going to be vice chair. And that became an embarrassment for the whole lot. The way it was done, and it was voted, we had to go to a second vote, and there was an open battle going on between the people that want the $300 million trolley, who's going to pay for it, and the $600 million light rail system to Miami Beach, who's going to pay for it. Hello. And I want to tell you that 5 of the 13 members of the commission are absolutely dead set on free transportation. He says that's the future. The way we fill our empty transit systems, buses and metro rail, is we give it for free. So who's going to pay for that? So we got problems, and the problem is that there's a member of that county commission that, for example, is absolutely adamant that the expansion that Gus and District 6 is going to do on the I-395, I-95 downtown area, which is $550 million project, which is going to end up being a $700–800 million project, that go underground. Well, underground costs $2 billion. Doesn't matter that we don't have the money. They're insisting that that be studied and that it be discussed. Let me tell you what happened the last time when Mayor Manny Diaz did that when he was just elected. He held up the project 1 year, 2 years. You know what happened the third year? The money was gone. You know where it went? To Central Florida. Now, I sit on the FTC, and I want to tell you that all the talk is Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, the Tampa-Jacksonville corridor. And I want to tell you, we have a community, starting with all due respects to the Chamber of Commerce, the Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners, and this community, that just don't get it. They don't understand. And we have problems at the MPO level. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's my report.
Thank you so much for your report. But, you know, as a good chair, I got to tell you this. There was some money when we raised the tolls last year. But as a good girl, I already went shopping and we bought ourselves a whole lot of projects.
I don't think you did it. I think the Board of County, the Board of MDX.
Exactly.
But thank you for your leadership for helping us do it.
Thank you. We move on and we go to Treasurer's report.
Mr. Treasurer, board members, the Treasurer's report is for January 31st, 2015, for fiscal year 15. Overall revenue, we posted $87.6 million compared to the forecast of $93.7 million. So what it reflects is a negative variance of $6 million. Please keep in mind, in December, we did take an allowance for doubtful accounts of $4 million, so that was reported on December's financials. There also is a lag on our toll-by-plate customers on the recognition of revenue, as well as the fact that we did program in the forecast to have all the ramps up and running in the month of January. That did not occur, so there is some delay on the collection of revenue on the construction side. On the expense side, nothing really stands out. On the expenses overall, before interest expense, we're about 4% below the forecast, so that's positive. Interest expense, obviously we did the refunding after we did the budget, so interest expense is obviously reflecting a savings also of $2.3 million. As a side note, we are moving forward with a potential refunding that we will bring to the board and Budget and Finance in March. As it stands right now, the present value savings is roughly hovering around 7 to 8%, about $10 million. Overall debt service could be potentially lowered about $35 million. So we will bring that forth next month to the Budget and Finance Committee. Overall, net revenue is about $31.2 million. I do see the rest of the year you'll see things smooth out a little bit, and I believe that we will reach our projections. With that, Mr. Treasurer.
Marie, could you answer for the board real quickly? And I know that this is probably a back-of-the-envelope number that you're going to have to come up with, but I'm sure that you have it on top of mind. What the savings have been for the restructuring in the last 2 years?
Our overall savings? Our overall savings is hovering somewhere around about $40-some million present value savings between all the refundings we've done. Now, we've lowered our debt service overall right around $75 million. And that was because mainly we did shorten on the last deal the life and maturities, which was a desire of the board to actually pay our debt off earlier than initially issued. So I think overall the structure of our debt, we protected the front end of our finances, so we're able to build our projects. And then on the midterm, we've created a little bit of capacity to, if we move forward with additional projects, or we can bring in the debt even further and pay it off earlier.
So all of the savings that we've generated out of these refundings and all of the initiatives that we've taken have gone to either shore up the finances and the debt service capacity of MDX. They have gone toward increasing the project capacity of MDX. I think the dollars are being well spent right where they are. So I would encourage anyone who has any questions about where our savings or our new tolls or any of the things that we do to shore up the finances of MDX, to please have a conversation with our finance director and our treasurer, and we will be more than happy to explain why the dollars are better spent where they are today. And with that, that's the report, Madam Chair.
Any questions from the board? Okay, with that, we continue to move forward. Move on to the consent agenda. Is there counsel?
I think that we skipped one. Committee reports.
We skipped the committee reports because they are part of the agenda.
Okay. Before I move into the consent agenda, I would ask to, 3 board members came in after I requested conflicts. Before I ask them officially, I want to advise the 3 board members that 1 hour prior to this board meeting, I was served with a lawsuit by MCM. MCM is seeking declaratory and injunctive relief. And again, I would like to remind all the board members that all their comments are public. So that being said, do any of the three board members that came in prior to me calling this earlier have any conflicts with any items on the agenda?
Yes, I filed the report. I have a conflict on item B.
Item B?
No conflict.
No conflict.
Okay. We'll move right into the consent agenda. Travel approval, March 29th to 31st, 2015, trip to Washington, D.C. by Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the IBTTA Washington briefing.
There's 2 items. There's 2 items.
Okay.
It's not finished, guys.
April 23rd to 28th, 2015, trip to Portland, Oregon by Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the IBTTA Special Board and Committee meeting, April 23rd through 25th, and Transportation, Finance, and Road Usage Charging Conference, April 26th to April 28th.
And I heard a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. We move on to the regular agenda.
Okay. Item A, MDX procurement contract number RFQ-10-05. MDX work program number 11211.050, construction, engineering, and inspection, CE&I services for Central Boulevard reconstruction, $250,914.55, endorsed by the Operations Committee on February 17, 2015. Approval of amendment number 4.
Very good. The item, yeah, but I'm going to call for a motion. Is there a
I'll
motion?
move it. Second?
Second? Hello?
Yes, second.
I heard it. A second. Now the item is open, and you're gonna address it first.
Good afternoon, board members. The item in front of you is for Parsons Brinkerhoff on project 11211.050 for CEI services on the Central Boulevard project, on the Central Boulevard reconstruction project. This is the fourth amendment, adding $250,914.55 to finalize the work needed to complete the job and provide the final documentation on the project. This is a project that has been delayed, that was delayed by the contractor beyond the original contract end date of March 15, 2014. The project was accepted on January 31st of 2015. They are being assessed liquidated damages until that day. Again, this fourth amendment is to finalize the project and all the documentation needed to close out the project.
Very good. Are there any questions from the board on this item? We all fully understand it was vetted extremely well at operations. There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against may be recorded. Motion carries. Item B.
MDX procurement contract RFP-14-03. MDX work program number A3628.030. Design build services for State Road A36, operational capacity and interchange improvement. Engineers estimate $158,426,151. Endorsed by the Operations Committee on 2/17/15. Approval of Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation to select the number 1 ranked proposer, Odebrecht Construction, Inc., to enter into contract for a not-to-exceed amount of $149,575,971.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this item?
I'll move it.
Is there a second? I can second it. Right? Okay, it's second. The item is now open for discussion. Council, I have a question before I give it to Helen to walk us through. The lawsuit preclude us from continuing?
No, not at all.
Okay, very good. Here we go. Helen, if you please walk us through.
Question in that respect as well?
Yes.
Being that I tend to speak very assertively. All right. Just a question on the technical aspect of the lawsuit. I understand that it does not preclude us from proceeding. What does the lawsuit do to the process?
It has no effect on the process. I would say the lawsuit has no effect on the process until there's a court order telling us to officially stop the process. We should not stop the process from moving forward. We've had this in the past. We've had 4 bid protests in the last, since our inception. 3 have been mediated. 1 went to litigation, and we've not stopped the process once for any type of bid protest or litigation.
Any other members? All right. Helen, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The requested action is the approval of the recommendation by the Operations Committee to award the contract to the responsive and responsible number 1 ranked proposer, Odebrecht Construction, Inc. 3 proposals were shortlisted to move forward in the RFP process to submit a technical enterprise proposal. The shortlisted proposals were Condotte de Moya Joint Venture, Munilla Construction Management, doing business as MCM, and Odebrecht Construction, Inc. Due to the size and the importance of this project, several elements were included in this RFP process, which, although common to the industry and proven, not regularly used by MDX. So if you would allow me to go through that process to give the board a bigger perspective of this project. Number 1 was the stipend. MDX agreed to pay the non-selected and responsive proposers a stipend of $150,000 to offset the cost of preparing the technical and price proposal, but more importantly, to allow MDX to use their concepts with no limitations as they proposed it in their submittals. This is the common practice in projects of this magnitude. Number 2, an alternative technical concept, also known as an ATC. This is the process in where the proposers, prior to submit of a technical proposal, are allowed to propose different concepts from the one provided in the RFP in which to deliver the project. The ATCs are subject to MDX review and approval, and a combined total of 54 ATCs were submitted from the proposers. Various ATCs were approved by MDX, and all proposals included approved ATCs in the proposal. Therefore, the technical proposals, the schedules, and the price proposals are not apples-to-apples comparison, as all proposals submitted a different concept. Alternative technical concept. Thank you. There was also a right-of-way acquisition process in this project. There are several parcels located within the project limits that have not been acquired by MDX. MDX estimated 690 calendar days after the notice to proceed is issued to the successful proposer to complete the acquisition of these parcels. The RFP prohibited construction activities on the parcels that have not been acquired by MDX and advised proposers to take that into consideration in preparing their technical and price proposals. Time value cost. MDX assigned a time value cost of $50,000 to each calendar day of the project duration. This amount was determined using several factors, one of which is the year 2020 projected traffic volumes as prepared by the traffic and revenue consultants and endorsed by the general engineering consultant, the decreased traffic value during construction, the board-approved toll rates for ORT, and also was taken into consideration the FDOT criteria to determine the time value cost, which accounts for various factors impacting the project construction, including travel time, accident costs, cost of maintenance activities, and impacts to other facilities. MDX also considered in determining the time value cost the State Road 836 and 826 interchange reconstruction project, which is currently under construction, was procured in the same manner as this project, and also was used the same $50,000 as the time value cost. Minimum technical score. In order to ensure that a contractor cannot buy the project without having the required technical qualifications and experience to deliver the project, the RFP required that proposals receive a minimum technical score of 700 points out of 1,000 in order for the price proposals to be open from the proposers. An adjusted score. An adjusted score was used to determine the ranking of the proposals based on an overall best value approach using 3 components. Technical scores, which are the scores received by each proposer from the Technical Evaluation Committee as a result of their evaluation of the technical proposals. The proposed contract time, which is the number of calendar days in which proposers commit to complete the project. And the price proposals, which is obviously the dollar amount for which the proposer commits to deliver the project. The combination of these factors to determine the overall best value to the agency is a common and proven practice used in the industry for major construction projects procured using the design-build-delivery method. The final selection formula used to come up with the adjusted score, the first step was to assign a dollar value to the proposed contract time. This was done by multiplying the proposed contract time by the time value cost, this was done by multiplying the proposed contract time of each proposer by the time value cost, which as previously mentioned, it was assigned to $50,000 per calendar day. Step 2 was the dollar value assigned to the proposed contract time was added to the price proposal. And step 3 was that the total dollar value was divided by the technical score to arrive at the adjusted score. The proposer with the lowest adjusted score would have been ranked number 1. All this information and processes were detailed in the RFP from its original distribution to the shortlisted firms on June 5th, 2014, and no changes to these were made throughout the process. The evaluation process that was followed once we received the technical proposals, the customary compliance responsiveness review was performed on all technical proposals before the distribution to the Technical Evaluation Committee, and all proposals were deemed responsive. The Technical Evaluation Committee met on January 28th, in where they scored the technical proposals and the price proposals were open, and the ranking was determined based on the formula previously described. The ranking was Odebrecht Construction was ranked number 1, Munilla Construction Management was ranked number 2, and Condotte de Moya was ranked number 3. Compliance review was conducted on the highest 2 ranked proposals and found that the price proposals were in compliance and responsive. In addition, a price proposal and proposed contract time analysis were performed by our general engineering consultant, which a copy of which is attached to your package. The GEC analysis concluded that the Autobreak's price proposal is reasonable and competitive based on their proposed design and as submitted in the technical proposal, and that their proposed contract time is achievable based on their proposed approach to the project, all consistent with the requirements of the allowances in the RFP. The contract has a 15% small business participation requirement as well as a 15% local business participation requirement. As endorsed by the Operations Committee, staff recommends the board award the contract to Autobreak Construction as the responsive and responsible number one ranked proposal for a not to exceed amount of $149,175,971 and a contract time of 1,055 calendar days. As it relates to the protest procedures that have been followed by MCM, prior to the Operations Committee, MCM submitted a premature notice of intent to protest. In the notice, MCM alleged that the proposal from Autobreak Construction was not responsive. MDX returned the notice and the bond as it was premature. MDX did review all the allegations made by MCM in the notice and finds no merit to their points. Therefore, we went ahead and moved forward with the recommendation to the Operations Committee. At the Operations Committee, as part of the public comment on the agenda, MCM presented the points that they've addressed in their notice. Autobreak disputed those points. Staff answered questions from members of the Operations Committee and confirmed their recommendation to the Operations Committee that the proposal submitted by Autobreak was responsive and the recommendation to move forward with the award of the contract. The committee went ahead and took action to endorse the contract and presented it to this committee today. After the Operations Committee, MCM resubmitted their notice to intent of protest with the same allegations. This time, the notice also requested that MDX defers the contract award until after the conclusion of a mediation step outlined in the MDX protest procedure. Before this meeting today, MDX met with MCM yesterday to determine if any new points were to be considered by MDX before presenting this item to the committee. MCM presented the same points. At the same meeting, MDX submitted 2 addenda to its protest, elaborating on the same points as to why they feel that the proposal from Autobreak is non-responsive. And as mentioned by our council today, MDX will serve with a lawsuit on this matter. Having said all that, staff recommendation to award the contract to the responsive and responsible number one round proposal, Autobreak Construction, remains unchanged.
Madam Chair, at this time, I think the only thing I would like to add, just to be consistent with everything that we addressed at the operations, and to add to Helen's very descriptive summary, is that during the process and during the 4-month question and answer period, there was a question that was provided by the proposers related to the right-of-way acquisition portion. And a clarification was given at that time that the no activities were to, the schedule applied to the parcels to be acquired. So the clarification was made at that time that that schedule applied to the parcels to be acquired on the project. That was stated at the Operations Committee, so I wanted to just stay consistent. Other than that, I have nothing else. I have nothing further to add to what Helen provided, and I'm ready to answer questions.
There, elaborate a little bit on what you're saying. You're saying there is an addendum that addressed and answered that particular question that is being referred to from the RFP.
That is correct.
Now, how do you know that all those proposals, they got the answer? Do you get something in writing? Do they sign when they submit? How do we know? What's the process?
All the proposals are required to acknowledge receipt of every addendum that we provide as part of the procurement process.
Okay.
And provide, and they are supposed to, and they are required to provide those acknowledgments as part of their technical proposal submittals.
So it's been asked and answered and received. Thank you. The item is open for discussion. Any board member that would like to address the board?
Well, I don't want to address yet. I just want to have questions. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, questions. Is that the addendum number 18 on November 4th of 2014?
I don't know the exact date, but it is addendum number 18.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Like to ask any questions? Mr. Executive Director, would you like to add something?
No, ma'am, my recommendation stands the same as it was at the Operations Committee, and it's before you in the agenda item report.
Okay. I have some questions. Do you have some questions?
No, I'd like to listen to. This lawsuit has, should.
That's a very good question. Let's go.
Well,
Counsel.
As for, let me start off with what they asked. They're asking the court to issue an injunction, and the court would have to find that MCM has a substantial likelihood of winning on the merits. The merits would be that MDX, the agency, acted capricious and arbitrary during the procurement process. The court for the Southern District of Florida has defined arbitrary and capricious for substantive due process purposes as acts taken with improper motive, without reason, or for a reason which is merely pretextual, which basically means that we follow our policy and did we award the contract based on the criteria set in our solicitation documents. At this point, I find no evidence that we, MDX, acted capricious or arbitrarily, that we did not follow our own policy. Our process does not contemplate stopping procurements while we wait for the resolution. I reviewed our history, and based on the information derived from Helen, who's been here since the beginning, she advised that we've had 4 bid protests. Again, with 3 were resolved through mediation, 1 went to litigation. We've never stopped a procurement process in the past. So that's the next procedure.
Okay, I have some questions. Helen, explain to me or expand on the cone of silence that we have.
The cone of silence requires that no communication between the proposers and any MDX representative, which includes board members, staff, consultants, and members of the Technical Evaluation Committee, happens from the time that the contract is advertised to the time that a contract is executed. And then all communications obviously would have to come through the procurement department.
Contract is executed. That means until there's a signature.
It's open now, yeah.
Not the voting today.
I'm sorry?
Not the
exceptions to the cone of silence would be public meetings such as this one today.
Okay. But executed contract means a signature between the winning consultant and MDX.
Correct.
Not the meeting today.
Correct. Assuming that there's not a protest, an ongoing protest. If there is an ongoing protest and a legal and legal matters related
What
to
happens if somebody breaks the cone of silence?
Those are grounds for disqualification, not only of the current procurement, but of future procurements with the agency.
So in other words, it's severe to the person, to the individual company that actually
violates
the cone of silence.
Yes, ma'am.
Let that be very clear to everybody and every member in the audience that you cannot break code of silence. If you do, you put your own contract at jeopardy. That's the first thing that we need to be clear. Second item, the addendum was provided, it was signed. Were there any bonus points provided in this contract, in this RFP, for completionness, for I don't know, I've seen this before.
During the first phase of the procurement, which was the request for statement of qualifications, which was used to determine the shortlist, there was bonus points for complete proposals, and only 2 proposals received that, the Condote de Moya joint venture and Autobrec. The remainder 3 proposals, which includes the protestant, did not get those points.
But those points did not transfer?
They do not. They were just used for
So they're part of the
purposes.
technical. They're part of the technical.
They're part of the qualification.
So now I turn to you, Executive Director. The validity of the statements being addressed and raised by the protester.
Again, Madam Chair, I've listened attentively. I read the notice of intent to protest when it was untimely filed. And even though it was untimely filed and it's a technical issue, I pay attention to what's in there. I looked at what the allegations were. I questioned staff. I questioned our consultants. I asked for a third party to look at the schedules. They all reported back to me, and I felt confident that there was no merit in the allegations. As far as I'm concerned, we followed our process. You know me, that I'm all about being consistent in our process. I made a recommendation on operations. I applauded the chairman of operations for allowing, regardless of what our process was and our procedure was, he allowed ample time for both sides to state their case. We listened attentively. We asked questions. We answered questions. I met with the team yesterday, and I think they were gracious, and I think our staff was gracious in giving them plenty of time. There's still nothing that tells me that I should stop or withdraw or defer this item today. Therefore, my recommendation is that we award it. There is, and I think one of the speakers spoke, there is ample opportunity after award for someone to protest and go through the process. It's there. They filed suit. We'll go through that process. It wouldn't be the first time that MDX goes through it. But as I stand here, I tell you that my biggest issue with procurement in my whole career is consistency. Consistency, consistency. And what we're proposing today is to be consistent with our policy and our process.
Very good.
One more question.
Yes.
On the issue of consistency, I don't think there's any doubts here. And policy and so on. Mr. Executive Director, I think it's important for all of us to understand what a delay. Now, you know, I know it's only a 60-day delay, but my experience in government has been that 60-day delays become 90 days, then 180 days, and 360 days, and so on. And tell me what the importance of timeliness and this $50,000 a day that you calculated, and how important is this project for this community, for MDX, and the timeliness of it? How important is that? And what does it mean for the rest of our work project?
Mr. Vice Chairman, and it's a very good question. It's a very good question, and I'll speak first to the importance of the project, and I'm glad Mr. Southway, I'm sorry, to the importance of the project. We all know as a board and as an agency what we've gone through for the last year and a half, 2 years, since we first set board rates and we started going out to the community. We made a commitment to this community that we would improve our highways, especially the ones that were transferred to us by the state of Florida. The biggest one is State Road 836. There's a question that I always have to answer of why did we leave 836 to the end? It was the most complex, the most complicated. And it also was predicated on a major reconstruction of an interchange with the Palmetto. And the last thing you want to do is have one contractor on top of another. So therefore, we had to push it out. If you'll recall, and this is, I guess, your answer, specific answer, we had elements of this project already financed and ready to be advertised in our previous work programs prior to this whole issues with the toll rates. And it was this board during a workshop that said that they couldn't stand for applying a toll rate on folks, whether it was 60 cents, 65 cents, 70 or 75, which were all the different rates that we evaluated, that there was no way that this board, regardless of the rate we set, would stand by having a project, a series of projects on 836 between Red Road and 995 that would last for another 15 years. So at that point, the board asked us, what would it take to bundle these projects together and advance them? And we explained to them what it would take. We said what the revenues would necessary to go about it. We made adjustments to our debt policy. We made adjustments to our finance plan. What we have today is a disagreement, and I get it. I understand this is a high stakes. But again, I go back to your question of consistency. And I'll say, if we defer this item, whether it's 30, 60, on the surface it doesn't look real. It doesn't look like a big deal, but it sets one heck of a precedent. Because regardless of the size of the project, whether it's $150 million or a $25,000 procurement, they're all important to the bidders. And what we will have done today is violate our process and our policies. And we will establish a precedent where if someone disagrees with the outcome, and listen, I've done this for many, many, many years, and I'm looking at it. There's always one winner, and there's always multiple losers. I get it. I understand that. This is a high, and you know what? A court will determine validity because there's a legal dispute here. But from my perspective, we need to advance this. based on our policy. We cannot set this precedent because in the next procurement, there will be a protest. There will be a file for whatever you called it. I'm not an attorney, so I don't file, declaratory relief, and then we stop again. And I think that defeats the purpose of our commitment to our toll payers. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the key to the whole thing. That this whole thing is, whichever way it goes, it's going to cost the toll payers, our customers. It's going to cost them money, and that's sad because instead of delivering a project, we're then wasting money due to an unhappy, belly-aching situation. Any other comments from any other board member? Yes.
Madam Chair, I was the...
I'd like to note that you are the chair of operations, and so
exactly what I was
a lot
gonna
of
say.
Deliberations was before you.
I was the chair of the Operations Committee when this item came up for our, based on the recommendation. My committee and I allowed both sides to an expansive amount of opportunity and time to create their position. Board Member Vasquez made it very clear, and our attorney made it very clear that this was not a formal protest at the time they were presenting that information to us, but to give them all an opportunity to allow the members of the committee to hear what their concerns were based upon the issues, and staff then, in detail, responded to any and all of the concerns that were brought before us. And they felt very comfortable with our recommendation. It's important to note that the difference in time that we're discussing here is 315 days. It's almost an entire year. MCM was 170 days longer in their analysis of time to even the second place amount of time of 1,200. So we're talking a significant amount of time, which greatly altered the situation in their calculations. We felt then, and I still believe, that there is a winner and there is a loser based on the formula that we have established. And this is not a new formula. This is not the first time we have had an RFP. This is not the first time we have two extremely talented and well-represented individuals, companies that have applied. And they know they know the way we have, they know our contract, they know our RFP, they know what our standards and policies are. If there is an issue with the way we handle protests, the courts will decide that. That's exactly where it should be decided. I concur with the director. My greatest concern is if we defer today, we will be deferring literally every single contract. If the courts down the line tell us we were wrong, then we'll deal with it at that point. I do not believe, based on the advice and recommendations our counsel has told us, that there is any concerns, but we've been wrong before. That is being human. But I strongly recommend that we follow our procedure and we follow what we have established, and this is why there's never been a question about the way we handle our RFPs here at the board, and I recommend then that we move forward today.
One more question. We had an oversight from the board, and Gus Pago was unable to be at the operating committee meeting, but he's here today, and I think it's important that we get our oversight's position on this.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity.
Thank you for remembering.
I have to agree with the chairman of the Operations Committee that, certainly the talent that went after this project, you had a very competitive process. Having looked through the binders myself, as they were delivered to me as board oversight, I did sit in on the deliberations of the Technical Review Committee to hear their discussions and certainly understand some of the turbulence presented here before us today. That being said, very competitive bid, very, very highly talented. And as part of that design, build, innovation process, there's many assumptions made not only by an agency when we set up the contract parameters, but also by the proposers as they pursue their projects in hopes of winning a project. I mean, let's face it, 2.7 million people in this county dying for some type of congestion relief. I certainly understand the precedent that would be set with a deferral, okay? And we'll leave that discussion a little bit later. But, very tight on price. The time delta here was really the assumption of the right-of-way, okay, and how that was interpreted in the document. And that interpretation is, everyone reads a little bit different. The agency said their clarification. I can't explain what happened other than the end, that there's a dispute here before the board and then subsequently maybe through the courts to determine if this agency's procurement process and its relief mechanisms is appropriate or not. They're going to rule whether we as the MDX agency followed our processes. And what seems before us is we have, okay? So from a board oversight, I could not detect anything that was improper. I think everyone did their due diligence. And, to the point of the proposers, everyone felt they can deliver this job to the board and to our community. So we have good competition is what we want. So, and the passion is what we are famous for in Miami.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Yes, Member Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Echoing what some of my colleagues have said, two outstanding companies, that issue is not even being debated here as to the qualifications of the two companies before us. Very difficult situation and unfortunate at the same time because, like Secretary Pego mentioned, it has come down to two different interpretations on the timing issue, specifically as it relates to the areas being purchased, the right-of-ways being purchased. It's very difficult when you sit on this side of the dais and hear day in and day out the complaints about MDX and the pressures that we live to justify our actions, which I am a very proud member of this board and a very proud member of what MDX is doing. But with that pressure comes the responsibility to make sure delay is avoided. And what I want to say for the record is that if I would have been told by my staff that there has been anything where we deviated from our procedure, I would have been the first one making a motion today for a deferral, because I want to make sure that we have a very consistent and pure system without holes. I have not been shown a hole. I have not been shown a hole, and I've been looking very carefully at this, and I've been listening very intently to our executive director and to our staff, and I've heard about the clarifications which everybody acknowledged, and that's just blowing me away, that those things were acknowledged and that still we have such. But at the end of the day, we have our director and our entire staff telling us that the process has not been deviated. Council, Mr. Bass mentioned that it's best to do things once and to do them right. I will tell you again, I have not heard anything that indicates to me that it's not going to be done right. So with that having been said, by the time I vote for this, my comments will justify or at least explain the very difficult decision that we have and why I will be voting the way I will. Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I've got a question for Mr. Toledo. Mr. Toledo, based on your analysis, in the event that this gets awarded the way that it's being recommended, and the deadlines or the time schedule is not met, have you done an analysis of what those consequences are to us, assuming from a, the intended contractor gets it, they don't meet that deadline? How does that play out for us, from either a financial perspective? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think if we're going to talk about, fairness, I think that should be considered as well, because if it's going to be punitive on one side or the other, I think that changes for me from a business perspective and looking out for the best interests of this community. What is that financial impact if they were to complete them at the same exact time? How do the numbers play out?
If I hear the question correctly, if we were to continue forward with the process and Odebrecht is awarded the contract and they move forward and start building the project, their contract time would be 1,055 days. If they fail to complete the project in that time, they will be assessed liquidated damages in the amount of $16,246.80 per day. We did do a brief analysis of what that represents in dollars for every day, and what we did was that we compared it to the other times that were proposed. So in the case of the second lowest proposed contract time that was proposed of 1,200 days, you'd be looking at 145 days of liquidated damages in the amount of $2,355,785.79 that would be assessed against Odebrecht. If that contract time went to the next or to the highest proposed contract time of 1,370 days, you'd be looking at 315 days of liquidated damages that translate into $5,117,741.54. If you would deduct that from their total of $149,175,971, we would only pay out $144,058,229.46 in accordance with our specifications.
Madam Chair, follow-up. So what does that technically mean? I heard a bunch of numbers in there, but we're actually recommending a $149 million contract, but you're saying in the worst-case scenario, it ends up being $5 million cheaper? Help me with the math here. Yeah.
Worst-case scenario is that it would take, and this is just according to what we have in front of us right now, worst-case scenario, you're looking at a 315-day delay and a savings of $5 million to the agency.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment, much like my colleague Javier. These are the times that are very difficult for the agency in evaluating these situations. The problem, or what I am not hearing, and the reason that it becomes even more difficult, is that at this point we have exhausted all of the policy possibilities for a protest on this issue.
No, that's not correct.
Is that correct?
We offered mediation, and we still can mediate it. Technically, according to our policy, we're supposed to mediate before you use the court system, but we never were definitive with counsel for MCM on whether they wanted to go through mediation.
At this point, if I'm not mistaken, you've exhausted them with the action. Correct?
No, we haven't visited it. We still mediate it.
Unless there is a significant reversal of the position of the staff of the committee on what the findings were on this issue, you've come to a stop. There's nothing else that can be done at this point in time, unless there is a complete reversal.
Right, the problem is there is an addendum that clarified the issue, and it's been asked and answered. Right. So in other words, the back and forth stops there.
So my point is, you've reached a point where everything in the process has indicated that that we find no issue with this award.
That we followed our policy. We selected.
So what does an extension get?
More time.
For what?
I don't.
That's where I'm having a difficult time, and I don't understand. I don't understand what the extension gets us. The request for the extension, what does it do?
Madam Chair, I think the question here is, what can we do within procedure? And I think if I understand what your question was is, procedurally, have we exhausted within the procedure, we've adopted, and I think the executive director says, look, I want consistency. Have we done everything we can within that procedure to date? After today, separate issue, right, depending on the outcome here. So I want to make sure that I understood your question.
Do I understand my question?
Is, have we done, and I think I heard counsel say, given the procedure, there's no room for mediating right now. There's nothing to do other than the established procedure that MDX is established.
The key is for us to continue to follow our policy. And following our policy means take a vote, move forward, up or down, whichever way it goes, move forward.
Because we've always behaved that way, unfortunately, there is no other course of action but to take that route. And that's what I'm trying to say at this point is you are at a point where there's nothing else you can do.
To further clarify your question, so I'm clear,
Point of order. You may.
Madam Chair, thank you. To further clarify, we couldn't even do an extension. I think that's what you were asking. If we were to consider that, that would be outside of the boundary of what we could do or have ever done, and it would be precedent setting. Is that
what
further the question? Okay, just so I'm clear.
Listen, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. We're a body of policies, rules, regulations, and sometimes you like them and sometimes you don't, depending on what side of the winning stick you're on. But for us, we've got to stick to our policy. The procurement is open. That means that we stick to our policy, and wherever this goes, that's what you did. You stuck by the policy. Everybody knows the rule. Everybody knows the game. It's sad. We're not Monday morning quarterbacking. We're not do that. Tomorrow, in fact, we're talking about policy again. But today, we have a motion and a second and an item on the agenda. So now, if there's not another question, which there is, we could take a vote. Yes.
Not a question, Madam Chair, just a comment, and I'm glad you mentioned tomorrow. I think I've been quite vocal about my passion for our procurement process and how I'm not for precedent setting. So it's a little disconcerting to be going through this process. I'm no longer on the operations committee, but I certainly had my slew of questions for staff yesterday. And I do sit on the policy review committee, so I take this to heart. And I am not at all uncomfortable with proceeding with the process how we have it. It's quite unfortunate because indeed these are two incredible firms, well embedded in the community. It's a shame that we should have to go through this, but everyone has to do what they feel is right. But I feel that we are proceeding with what is right, and I believe it's time to move on. We've hashed this item along quite a bit.
In addition to which, that I might add that besides having 3 exceptional contracting firms bid this and 2 finalists, I think this board has done everything beyond the call of duty to satisfy and answer all questions and patiently review this time and time again. That operations committee was a hot meeting. I mean, and it was. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, you did an absolutely exceptional job in chairing it. And
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So it's there. So further discussion. Are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of the motion as made, say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Let the record reflect that the chair had to take a call. She will be back, and I would like to give her the right to also record her vote if that goes without any objection. This matter is therefore resolved. Thank you for your patience, and thank you all. So what other items do we have, Mr. Executive Director?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'm not going to presume what the chair's comments are, so I'd like to go to the announcements. As Board Member Weinberg said, tomorrow we do have the procurement policy workshop. I encourage.
That's at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
That's tomorrow morning here at the boardroom. Again, I encourage you to participate. On March 10th, 11 o'clock, we'll have.
Wait, Javier, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Of course, that is an open meeting.
It is an open
so
meeting.
So if everybody has questions or issues with our procurement policy, the way we discussing it, then you're certainly welcome to join.
Absolutely. This Friday, and I'm not sure it made it to the agenda, Madam Secretary, this Friday We're going to have an intergovernmental public communication meeting. The focus is going to be intergovernmental. And it's interesting because as the meeting was going on, I just got notified that, and I'll try to read it for the record, so we'll have this conversation on Friday, but a House bill was just filed again this year. It is House Bill, hold on a second, and I'll tell you right now.
989.
989 was just filed again by Representative Nunez, and it calls for reducing the board to a total of 9 members, 4 state, 4 county, and 1 secretary. So it puts the majority with the state, and it restricts lobbyists in any form from participating on or being appointed to the board. And it's got number of years of anybody who represented a firm or company that does work with a municipality or a transportation agency. So that was just filed again, and it is our understanding that a companion bill. I've also been informed that there will be a companion bill in the Senate. So we'll have this conversation Friday. It's very timely, and I will ask for the board and the committee to advise. Thank you.
Happy 2015.
Madam Chair, if I may, in your absence, I put the matter to a vote. It was passed unanimously. The board also approved your recording your vote if you so wished.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and did you do the informational items? With that, I'm going to keep it brief to the chairman's comments today. It's been a long day. We had to listen carefully and hard. And what I'm going to say is we've got some very exciting news. And the exciting news is we're talking procurement, and then we're talking strategic plan. Okay? And be prepared for some new policies coming into play that stops the irony and the games. And you know what? We are doing very exciting things. We're helping people get to places, get to their business, get to their jobs. That congestion out there is a parking lot. We need to move forward. To the winning bidder, congratulations and welcome. I understand this is 2 bids today. 2 new companies? No, one of them is a new company. One is a new company. Welcome to MDX. I understand this is your first contract with us. Congratulations. And wow, very important job. Let's get to work. There's a lot of people that get new jobs because of this, and that's what we're all about. We made a commitment to the community, why we put tolls. Now, let's stick to it. It's okay what Jeanette Nunez has filed. Everybody has a right to do and say whatever they want, and here we go. Thank you. And with that, if anyone else doesn't have any comments, I'm going to do the following.
Move to adjourn.
Exactly.
Quick question. I think we have our meeting on Fridays at 10. Is that correct? And again, I don't know, I'm not asking that it be changed for me. I try to attend all my meetings, but when I can't, I get frustrated about it, and it's such an important topic.
We will discuss it with the chairman of the committee and see if we can push it to
maybe 1 hour to assist if possible back. If not,
it would help. Okay, we will poll the committee members on Friday.
I had asked for the same.
Okay, well.
Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to accommodate everybody, not me.
Mr. Vasquez, Board Member Vasquez, and the other board, what we'll do is we'll poll all the members. We'll talk to the chairman and see if we can accommodate everybody. It's important that we have that conversation. And as I've said in the past, even if you're not a member of the committee, you're invited to come. You're encouraged to come.
It's an open workshop, so please come in, and we are going to take the policy. Tomorrow, I know.
Friday.
The other one is good, but the one tomorrow is everybody's invited.
And everybody's urged to partake.
Very important. So I have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor, and we're celebrating. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's going to be.
I think you should take
How are you? You're lucky.
Our item is next to Nancy.
It's red, it's black and white. It's beautiful.
Well, you're in the business. It happens all the time.
I used to die.
Incredible amount of work goes into these proposals, so people get really emotionally invested.
Then you gotta learn to go, oh, yeah, I can get that one. And, yeah. Gracious.
Crazy.
Shame.
Anyway,
Good to see you.